I'm an engineer by training. I like science. I believe in innovation. I understand that our future is based on innovation. If I think about the last 100 years of innovation in medicine, insulin was first used in 1921. In 1928, Fleming discovered penicillin, starting a revolution leading the golden age of antibiotics in the 1940s, 50s, and early 1960s that brought us an extension of life expectancies because infections no longer were a death sentence. Beginning in the 1940s with the first hip replacement was a revolution of biomechanics. Today, the most frequent replacement is hips and knees, and what we see is that a broken hip is no longer a sentence to immobility and early death, but a bump along the way and not a prevention for a full and active lifestyle. The first monoclonal antibody was approved by the FDA in 1986, opened the door for this next revolution of personalized therapies. And in 1990, the first FDA approval of NIH-studied, invented gene therapy was made. Sitting here in 2019, we are truly on the cusp of a new frontier in medicine with individualized, personalized therapies and cures just on the horizon. But, and I will start here, I'll go here where my colleague from Georgia, Mr. Lewis, started. Healthcare is a fundamental right. It can't be an exclusive privilege of only those who can afford it. Innovation that is a breakthrough, but inaccessible because of its cost, is not truly innovation. Mr. Chairman, for too long, our constituents have suffered from unreasonable and often unjustifiably high cost of prescription drugs. Last week in our hearing on this bill, I told the story of Ms. Jody Nepstad, a constituent of mine from Zion, that despite having drug coverage through Medicare Advantage, is rationing her insulin, again, a drug that was invented in 1921. She is forced to ration her insulin as she waits for her next disability paycheck. Even though her case is exceptional in many ways, Jody sadly is not an exception. 3 in 10 adults reported not taking their medicines as prescribed at some point in the past year, simply because of the cost. Americans are paying 4 to 7 times as much for the same prescription that might be sold in other countries. We are the innovation engine of the world in the United States, but we're also paying multiples of other nations. That's simply not fair. Something is broken. And when a market has failed, it is incumbent upon the government to step in and fix it. No one on either side of the aisle wants to stifle innovation. That is clear. There are some truly amazing treatments that are on the horizon, but not on the market today. But there are others that have already made it to the market, new therapies that can cure previously untreatable diseases in a single dose. But that doesn't mean that patients can be gouged across the board. H.R. 3, the Elijah Cummings Lower Drug Costs Now Act of 2019, will correct many of the market failures that plague our current drug pricing system. And in doing so, will save a substantial amount of money for employers, the government, and most importantly for patients. The legislation then plows much of that money back into our health system, improving benefits for Medicare beneficiaries, increasing NIH research spending, among other provisions. I also want to highlight one Medicare improvement that, although we won't be marking here today, I believe is vitally important to include in H.R. 3. Medicare beneficiaries are one of the last groups that do not enjoy full pre-existing condition protections. Medicare beneficiaries under 65 purchasing a Medigap plan can still pay more for having a pre-existing condition or disability, or even entirely be denied from a plan. The same is true for a beneficiary switching from Medicare Advantage to traditional Medicare. My bill, the Protecting Medicare Beneficiaries with Pre-Existing Conditions Act, eliminates these inequities. The ACA took a major step forward protecting Americans from unfair underwriting. It's time we extend those same protections to our seniors and disabled as well. I look forward to working with the committee on this issue. We have a clear directive from our constituents to address drug pricing, and today our committee is answering these calls. I look forward to passing H.R. 3 out of the committee today, as well as ensuring this bill passes the House so it can get signed into law as soon as possible. Our constituents have waited long enough. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and with that, I yield back.